So let me plug everything back in here. Apologize. We'll get the hang of these Thursday night chats pretty soon. So let's see here. Yeah. I'm just going to kill a little bit of time until I see you guys again. I'm going to share it in the Facebook, in the community, or excuse me, in the eZine community on Facebook. And all right, I'm posting if my computer will ever come up. All right, post. All right, looks like 5 of you are back already. I'm sorry about that. I know exactly what happened. I know exactly what happened. It hit the power button. So anyway, give me just another second, a few minutes, a couple minutes, 1 minute, something like that. And I'm going to wait for the others to make it back in here. And I'm going to delete the old one if I can find it. There it is. There we go. Now we have 6 people. All right, so here's what. Next week, I promise it'll all go smoothly. Okay? Sorry about that. So anyway, yeah, we are back. Well, no, what happened was this. I gotta get a new phone holder because what it does just very slowly is it slides down. And when I slid it back up, it hit the power button. So which is not good. So yeah, Angel box set. It's all 5 seasons in that box. So yeah. And I think most people who are watching are gonna go to Facebook. So hopefully we do. And all right, I'm gonna make sure this doesn't happen again next week. I apologize, and let's get back to it here. So what I was trying to do is flip it over like that so I can show you guys there's the Charles Grant shelf right there. Like I said, you have a Richard Lehman book on top for some weird reason. And I've got at least that many on Kindle. And this is what it looks like behind me in my office if you guys are interested. And there's my somewhat easy chair. Just going in a slow circle here. You can see, Ben, that Batman and Dennis O'Neil Batman question and Green Arrow, you can't really see it very well. But that's what that is back there. And the fog, there's the computer. This is my little L desk. So yeah, I love it. I can't believe I've got something like this. I never thought I would have something this cool. And like I said, Danielle found it in the paper. And I just thought, yeah, it's a looks like a nice place with this finished shed and everything, you know. Let me know if you guys can still, looks like you can still hear me and see me. And I just thought, you know what, it really looks so great, but this isn't really going to happen in real life, right? But obviously it did. So that's where I'm talking from. So, all right. So before I rudely dropped you guys, we were going to talk about Charles Grant. Let me pull up my notes. All right, so you saw the shelf. Yeah, I do like the Black Oak series a lot. I really, really do. It's exactly. I mean, it's moody. It's atmospheric. My favorite in the series is. Uh, let's see here. Give me a sec. Is it where the cold wind, when the cold wind blows? No, that's not it. I think it's. Yeah, it's Hunting Ground. Yeah, here we go. All right. Probably reversed, but Charles Grant, um, Hunting Ground. I think it's number 4. I can't see a number here. But, so, let me just read this for those of you who aren't familiar, okay? Black Oak Security is a crack team of private investigators led by brilliant, enigmatic Ethan Proctor. But even the brilliant get burnt out sometimes, and when his employees order him to take a much-needed vacation in Atlantic City, Proctor reluctantly agrees. Ensconced with his friends in a boardwalk hotel, he is just beginning to relax when things start getting strange. An old friend drops the information that a killer is stalking the boardwalk, and the locals suspect vampirism. Yeah, I don't know if the locals suspect that. A beautiful, mysterious woman hints that she knows what killed a former associate of Proctor's some weeks earlier. And here's the fun part. I've often mentioned that I like when the weather figures in to a story, especially in a situation like this. A fierce winter storm strikes the coastal city, and Proctor and his friends are trapped between nature's wrath and a killer's rage. So, Chaz, did you make it back, or did I dump you for good tonight? So, thank you guys for going back and giving me a take 2 tonight. So, all right. So, this Black Oak Security, I really like the idea of it. They're a detective agency, but sometimes they get these paranormal type of cases, or what looks like paranormal type of cases, that kind of thing. And this particular one, it's either number 3 or number 4 in the series. There's 6 in the series. And I think Grant died before he could write any more past 6. Yeah, Charles L. Grant is the same guy. And it's like Pete Rawlik on Amazon versus Peter Rawlik, right? So you'll see it both ways. Same with Charles Grant. So he, like the back says, he's burning out right now, and his employees order him to take a vacation. So he takes 2 of his employees, slash friends with him, and they're right there on the ocean in Atlantic City, and a winter storm just traps them in there. And you can take it from there, but it's just really, really great. It hits all my buttons, so to speak. So let me do something real quick here. There we go. All right. Anyway, so I would definitely check out the Black Oak series if you like that kind of thing. Just bear in mind that there is a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of book 6, and it never gets resolved, okay? But, I can live with that. I really like the series. So, I'm looking at quite a few on my Kindle right now. Let's see here. Looks like. Hey, Jazz is back. Give me a second. It looks like we might have a spammer in the group here, and I did everything so fast that um, customization. There we go. Subscribers only. There we go. That should fix that. All right. So, yeah, you didn't. It's not your fault, Chaz. It's my fault. I bumped everybody when I hit the volume um, on my phone. I'm definitely just doing the computer next week. Anyway, so we were just talking about the Black Oak series. Tell Chaz hi, everybody, so he knows you're here. Looks like we got 16 people watching right now, which is pretty good for live for me. So the Black Oak series, picked that up. Like I said, number 3, Black Oak Hunting Ground is my favorite. Ensconced, I probably read this 5 times. You know, they're ensconced in this, they're ensconced in this hotel slash, you know, what do we call it? And, you know, there's a killer, possible vampire, so on and so forth. Anyway, I've talked about that long enough. Just, yeah, pick it up. Now, Keelan Patrick Burke is a big fan of Charles Grant. I can't remember which one, but he wrote an introduction to one of them. Now, if you're not sure where to start, because he wrote a lot of books, it is live, Dave. Nightmare Seasons. Now, he was really especially great with a novella. And in Nightmare Seasons, there are 4 interconnected novellas. And actually, Patrick said something about that in a blurb. My favorite books of his are those that combine quartets of stories linked by a central motif. It has long been argued that for horror writers particularly, the novella is the ideal length for a story. I agree. It allows character development and plenty of darkness while negating the need for rambling or filler. Grant was most at home with novellas, and indeed, they represented him at the height of his power. So, you know, he's got several books like that. So, Nightmare Seasons is just one of them. So there's a prologue here where, you know, I guess this character is a writer. Yeah, I have in the distant past. I need to go through them again, Jay. In the prologue, he's talking about, you know, being in Oxrun Court, or Oxrun Station, the name of the town, which is one of his series. And I think this is that. Yeah, I think this is Oxrun Station. Double check. Suppose it doesn't matter. And it's winter, it's raining, and so he's got this prologue. He goes to the library just to get out of the house, and the librarian gives him a book that's not really part of the, you know, part of the library books that can be checked out, to put it that way, and says, you know, take this home and read it, you know. He goes, it did not occur to me until much, you know, she says, take it, she insisted gently. Then she glanced toward the tall arched windows that made up the building's front wall. It's the weather for it, believe me. It did not occur to me until much later that enjoy was a word that she had not used once. And so, oh, you just started this, that's great. And so he's reading this book, and the 4 novellas in this book are interconnected, and it's the author reading it. And after he reads the 4 novellas, then he writes kind of an outro or an afterword, his thoughts on what he just read. So I'm not going to ruin anything. And remember, even with novellas, when you read Charles Grant, it's about the atmosphere. So, you know, he's going to take his time with it. So it's always a slow burn. From the prologue, here are a couple of quotes. A lifeless, persistent 2 weeks rain that began began without warning as a twilight mist and becomes during slumber an early morning drizzle, lightly coating even the most pristine white with the dull ghost shroud of gray. Winds shift and rise, clouds darken and spill, and gutters hold too much. Storm drains not enough, see again, weather, while the ground at every corner becomes brown and soggy. Talking about how people escape weather like this when they live in northern climates, like New England. And then he says, and finally for me, for those who take, excuse me, and finally for those like me who take the seasons as they come, there are voyages in books. When the house grows too small and the shadows too real, and the clock in the hallway talks death to itself. Winter and rain. So he goes and gets the book, and he opens it, and he says, yet, to be honest, it did not give me, simply by holding it, uneasy sensations of shadows pressing over my shoulder, or unnameable presence lurking about my windows. It was, I judged, a book and nothing more. And like all books, it could do nothing to me that I did not permit. I don't know about that. But, and so with cigarettes and a not so fine brandy to hand, I read it, forgetting the time and the cigarettes and the brandy and the cold, but not forgetting at all that I was still in Ox Run Station, and it was still raining. And the four novellas are the four seasons of the year. What kind of something that happened in the town. The first one, for example, is spring 1940, and then summer, obviously autumn, winter, and then his afterword. But if you're looking for something just, really atmospheric, really, quiet horror and that kind of thing, you can't do any better than Nightmare Seasons. One more quote for you and I'll move on. Meanwhile, I stand at the window. This is from his afterword, after he's read these four stories that we as the reader read. Meanwhile, I stand at the window with the book shimmering behind me, and I see each time the wind shifts the indistinct figure of someone standing just outside the reach of the streetlight, of someone darker than shadow in the corner of my porch, of someone waiting on the lawn, oblivious to the storm. I see it, but I don't believe it. 1981, Charles Grant. So, yeah, that could be Hector. So anyway, that was Nightmare Seasons. Jay, thanks for suggesting this. Touch on a couple of more. The Pet, is a classic. That's a novel. The Orchard is another a book of four novellas. And yeah. So I'd be interested to hear from you guys if you read some Charles Grant, or if you have read some Charles Grant, which ones were your favorites. So, but if you read none of them, maybe start with Nightmare Seasons. And if you like the idea of a detective agency that investigates, occult things like that, then check out the Black Oak series. All right, so took care of Charles Grant. Yeah, email me or just comment below when you come back to this after you've read a book or two. That would be best. Comment below, because that helps the algorithm on YouTube. And let me know which ones you liked. So, all right, talked about Laird. Talked about Late Night with the Devil. All right, so yesterday, Mike DeBronzo and Matthew Carpenter and I Oh, good, Chaz. I'm glad. Very different from a lot of the other things I've recommended. I think like it's not Legati, it's not any of that stuff, but it's quiet horror, which I love. We talked about The Fog. I don't know if, and I uploaded it today, video and audio. I don't know if any of you have had time to listen to that, but that was a lot of fun. That was a blast. So, all right. So while I look something up here, I'd like to know what else you guys would like me to touch on. Lord, this computer is not cooperating today, I'll tell you that. Okay, Stephen King. Yeah, I know I have more King books than that on Kindle. But I'll contradict what he probably is going to continue it, Brandon. Because Bad Hand Books is they're publishing them. So, I'm pretty sure he's going to have a number 5. I really can't say much about it. But of course, Laird's got his new collection coming out in September. Not a Speck of Light. So check that out. I don't know. I don't know who's the most must read. I mean, because it just horror. There's so many shades of horror, right? There's so many aspects to horror. There's weird fiction. There's slashers. There's cosmic horror. There's quiet horror, which is what we've been talking about, and yeah, classic stuff like Poe and Lovecraft. So I don't think it's possible to really answer the question of a must read. I think if someone said, Mike, I like quiet horror, what's a must read? Then I would say, hey, um, Charles Grant, you should check that out. So it just depends. Um, but I will contradict the novella thing that we've been talking about because there are plenty of exceptions, right? Stephen King is one. There are books where I feel like, I'm like, get to the point. But then there are books where he takes his sweet time getting to the point, and I'm just fine with it. Like Doom McKee, for example. I mean, really, this is a book about a guy who's badly injured on the job, and then he convalesces. He's rich, so he goes and convalesces in this private key, a Florida key, Doom McKee, and there's only one other person on the whole island, or there's 2 people, but one other house that's occupied on the whole island. So, have you guys read that one yet? Doom McKee, Stephen King. Um, but at face value, it's about a guy that's sitting around recovering, from his injury. But it's so much more than that, when you've got a master like Stephen King writing it, and it's one that I've read a couple times. I've read Salem's Lot a couple of times. And then there are Stephen King books that I've only read once. Oh, another one is From a Buick 8. I think Doom McKee and From a Buick 8. Yeah, yeah, I agree, Ben. Doom McKee and From a Buick 8, they're thick books too. And they take a long time to get to the point. And I'm actually re-listening to From a Buick 8 when I go to sleep at night. And it's just so enjoyable. And if you like audiobooks, by the way, oh man, they have got some good narrators, several different narrators in that book. And they're somewhat well-known actors. I can't remember their names, but they do a fantastic job. And it's like the difference between when I was talking about the Black Oak Charles Grant series, they've got those on Audible now too. And as much as I enjoy, say Black Oak Hunting Ground, I couldn't really listen to it on Audible because the narrator just wasn't that great. So if I want to revisit it, I just read the book. But From a Buick 8 is different, as well as Doohickey. And if you want to listen to a really well done audiobook, From a Buick 8 is definitely one to listen to. The Shadows by Alex North is another one. It's got one narrator, but he does a really great job, and it's even creepier than if you read it. So I was looking for a King book. Maybe I don't have it on Kindle. So now I'll be blasphemous here and tell you guys that I've never gotten through it. And I've never gotten through. Wait a minute, I did read The Stand in the early '90s, but I've never gotten all the way through it. I don't know if I've just I saw the series and I saw the movies, and so I know the story. So, yeah, it's not, it doesn't interest me. But like I said, Doohickey and From a Buick 8, I can read over and over. All right, here I found the book I was looking for. Night Shift. Stephen King's Night Shift, one of his early collections, right? Ben, you probably know, is that his first collection? And John D. MacDonald introduces it. But in possibly the greatest foreword of all time, Stephen King writes the foreword, and it is just fantastic. So he's writing this, I guess, maybe in the late 70s. So, Joe Hill, all those kids, they're still little kids. He's still starting out. Yeah. I think the collection came out somewhere around 80 or so. I'm just not sure. But early on in his career. Yeah. Ben, I remember that, but I just can't do it. But that's just me. But Night Shift, the foreword that he writes to Night Shift is just fucking incredible. And he starts it off, he says, let's talk, you and I. And you really have to picture this. Let's talk about fear. The house is empty as I write this. A cold February rain is falling outside. It's night. Sometimes when the wind blows the way it's blowing now, we lose the power. But for now, it's on, and so let's talk very honestly about fear. Let's talk very rationally about moving to the rim of darkness and perhaps over the edge. And it starts there, and it's just a really great, second introduction, forward, whatever. And he ends it with, where I am, it's still dark and raining. We've got a fine night for it. There's something I want to show you, something I want you to touch. It's in a room not far from here. In fact, it's almost as close as the next page. Shall we go? Yeah, here we go. So he wrote this on February 27th, 1977. So I was only 30 or 40 at the time, Ben. Imagine. What do I want to recommend in terms of Ray Bradbury? Well, do you want to read novels or do you want to read short stories? His novels are great, and some are greater than others. But as a kid, I started off reading his short stories, and they really influenced me. Novels? Okay, well, it's hard not to. Something Wicked This Way Comes is fantastic. I've got. We're gonna attempt this again. Let me show you my Bradbury shelf, okay? Look, Ben, it's the fog. So I think this is the first time I've showed my office. I got to do a real tour, video tour. Oh yeah, okay. So there's Bradbury. This one was $1.99. Bradbury Stories was $1.99 once on Kindle, and I snagged it. Hey, look who it is. Hey, Oreo. My assistant. You gonna eat? No, you're not gonna eat some hot, dry food. I'll feed you some more of the chicken soup stuff when we're done. All right, so yeah, Death is a Lonely Business is not one that's mentioned very often, but check this out. Or I'll put this over here and I'll read from it. And Something Wicked This Way Comes right here. Ben, I swear to God, if you tell everybody again about the signed novels that you have, there's Something Wicked This Way Comes, the movie, and you can only get it on. It's not available to stream. So there's the old Fahrenheit 451. What is this one? Oh, that's another collection. Long After Midnight. I guess novels. I'd have to say. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I mean, Ben? What do you think? Get another perspective here. Death is a lonely. Yeah, a lot of people don't like Death is a Lonely Business. It's not really. It's different than your usual Bradbury stuff. Starts off with Venice, California in the old days had much to recommend it to people who liked to be sad. So there's a beginning for you. So if you've not read Something Wicked This Way Comes, then you should check it out. And Fahrenheit 451. I mean, those two get recommended a lot, but that's for a good reason. Yeah, Dandelion Wine is good too. So, Bradbury Stories and the Stories of Ray Bradbury, I've got both of those on Kindle. The Martian Chronicles, obviously, are just fantastic. And one of my favorite stories is called Night Meeting in the Martian Chronicles. And you guys stop me if I think I've talked about this before. But it's, these dates were updated, but August 2033. And you've got to suspend disbelief, and Mars has an atmosphere and so forth. But this guy is driving his pickup truck, out in the middle of nowhere in Mars, and he stops for gas at this gas station, and it's run by this old guy who came out to Mars, he says, just for something different. And there's this really great chapter about time after he talks to the guy. Martian Chronicles had a huge effect on you, Ben? Same. So he's driving away, and he says, it says, he had been driving steadily for an hour, no other car on the road, no light, just the road going under, the hum, the roar, and Mars out there, so quiet. Mars was always quiet, but quieter tonight than any other. The deserts and the empty seas swung by him, and the mountains against the stars. He really, really can paint a picture, can't he? Now, if I'm ever reading and you guys want me to move on, just tell me. I won't be offended. The deserts and empty seas swung by him, and the mountains against the stars. There was a smell of time in the air tonight. He smiled and turned the fancy in his mind. There was a thought. What did time smell like? Like dust and clocks and people. And if you wondered what time sounded like, it sounded like water running in a dark cave, and voices crying, and dirt dropping down upon hollow box lids, and rain. And going further, what did time look like? Time looked like snow dropping silently into a black room, or it looked like a silent film in an ancient theater. 100 billion faces falling, like those New Year balloons, down and down into nothing. That was how time smelled and looked and sounded. And tonight, Tomas shoved a hand into the wind outside the truck. Tonight, you could almost touch time. And I won't give away what happens next, but it's one of my favorite, possibly my favorite story in the Martian Chronicles. To answer your question, Chaz, the story is in the Martian Chronicles, obviously, and it's called The Third Expedition. I believe it had a different name in earlier printings, but I can't remember what it was. And this, you talk about horror and science fiction, Ben. This is a story that just horrifies when you read it for the first time. And it would be a crime for me to give away what happens. But, you know, these guys, it's a ship. These guys are in a ship coming down from space to Mars. They're exploring Mars. And then what happens after that? I was going to say something, but I just can't give any of it away. But if you want to read a horrifying Ray Bradbury story, I would read that one. And then one more that I can't remember if is in the Martian Chronicles or not. It should be if it isn't. Yeah, I remember now. I've never understood why it's not in the Martian Chronicles. The story I'm thinking of. That's okay. Let me see here. Man, it is amazing how many short stories Bradbury wrote. I mean, novels too, but I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of short stories, and they're all so great, you know? On the Orient North, that's a really great one. I love highlighting. That's why I like Kindle books. I love my print books, as you guys can see. But if I see a book that I really love that's on sale for $1.99 or something Kindle, then I'll get it. Yeah, I can't find it right now, so I won't bore you guys with it. All right, what else do we want to talk about? That's Bradbury. Pretty hopeful to have mine. Did you guys, any of you, pick up Nocturnes yet? I'm rereading it, as I said, and it's so good. And by the way, it's Jeff Harding reads it. It's a really good audiobook as well. So, when was that, Dave? About what year? So I think I mentioned last time that there's going to be a new Batman novel coming out in the fall, written by John Jackson Miller. I guess this guy, I haven't read any of the Star Wars novellas, or excuse me, Star Wars novels, but apparently he's written those. And this book is called Batman Resurrection, and it's 2004, 2005. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Kelly did a really great job. Um, this isn't available right now. You had to get in on it at the beginning by Kelly Young, The Secret Language of Spiders. But there will be an additional edition. Say that 5 times real fast. This summer, I believe, and people can pick it up then. Where all 5 of these are going to be in one volume, sort of like the Green Mile, right? Kelly did a great job. And anyway, this is called Batman Resurrection, and it's set immediately after the Tim Burton Batman 1989 movie. Ben, don't start. Oh, that wasn't Ben, that was Jay. Okay. That's all right, Jay. Continue. All right. So, let's go back here. Well, let's want to talk about, I know. Did I mention this last time? Dead Romance. Is this reversed for you guys? It probably is. Dead Romance by Lawrence Miles. Ben, have you read this one? Here's what grabbed me. I got this for $1 at the half-price bookstore. All right, let's start with the basics. The world ended on the 12th of October, 1970. Well, that got my attention right away. Oh, you have? What'd you think, Alan? Very philosophical in some areas of the book, isn't it? Wow, I need to reread this. This is on Kindle now, too. Okay, I'm glad it doesn't look reversed. Here's the problem when I talk about books. I keep thinking, all right, I want to reread that one. I want to reread that one. And so on. What's sad is that no matter how long I live, I will never get to read all of the books that I would love to read, but I guess we just read as many as we can, right? I mentioned this last time, but I got to mention it again. The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows is just, I love poetry. I write poetry at times. I actually won a poetry contest once, many moons ago. My wife entered a poem of mine into an online contest, and I didn't know about it until she told me that I won. The first prize was $100 gift certificate to Barnes & Noble, which is a great prize. So anyway, yeah, poetry. This book is very poetic. It's about feelings and situations, etc., that we all experience, or most of us experience, but there are no words for, and he created words for them, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. So I think that's the second time I've talked about that one. All right. Year of the Quiet Sun. Okay, if you like time travel, this is a really great one. And it's set in the, when is it set? 1970? Something like that? 1978? Something like that. Sometime in the 70s. And the government has created a time machine. And so they put together a team to go look at the far-flung future of the year 2000. And I can't really articulate just why this book is so good and really sucks you in. When I read it the first time, I was a real estate agent, and I didn't return calls for like a day because I just couldn't I couldn't stop reading the book. So, yeah, The Year of the Quiet Sun. And I didn't have as many notes this time. It was kind of a stressful week. But two things for next week. Number one, I won't cut you guys off again. I'll make sure I get my shit together. And number two, I'll have some more notes. So, although we have killed an hour, haven't we? So, all right, you guys want to talk about anything else? You guys got to get up and work early tomorrow? Probably do. Let's see here. What other notes did I make? Not there. Logan put Linux on my desktop, so I no longer use Windows. I've got the PC and I've got the Chromebook, which is Linux too, of course. So yeah, I've been meaning to tell you that. Might make you happy. Hey, oh, that's great. Man, you've been working so hard for so long. You need to sleep in tomorrow. This is the very last day, actually half day, that you guys can get in on this. Chaosium is on Kickstarter again with a Call of Cthulhu board game, Horror on the Orient Express. And oh man, this thing looks freaking fantastic. I mean, it's the the first tier is $98, so that immediately priced me out. But it looks fantastic. I emailed them and asked them if I could get a review, a game for review. So we'll see if they usually give me stuff. So I don't know. It just looks fantastic. Google Kickstarter and Horror on the Orient Express, Call of Cthulhu, Chaosium, those keywords, and you should come right to it. And by now, I think we're probably down to 17 or 18 hours left. This thing funded in 10 minutes, man. 10 minutes. So, wow. I thought I was doing good when Autumn Cthulhu funded in 2 days. 10 minutes is just amazing. All right, speaking of Autumn Cthulhu, I wrote this in my notes for Sunday, but I'll ask you guys now. What do you guys want? I mean, is there really a desire for Autumn Cthulhu too? I mean, if there is, I will finally get to it and do it. And many of the writers that were in Autumn Cthulhu, I'm sure will be in Autumn Cthulhu too. And I get things done, but I just get them done slowly. So I can do that. And there's another project coming up that I can't talk about yet, but I really wish I could. Necronomicon. How many of you guys are going to Necronomicon in August? I'm going. Ben, I wish you were going. Chaz, you're going, right? Alan, you're going. Who else is going? Alan, is your wife coming again this time? Anyway, what did I want to say about that? Oh, Niels Hobbs, the organizer. His name is Niels Hobbs, and no, it's in Providence, Chaz. Providence, Rhode Island. So, if you happen to walk past Niels Hobbs when you're there, shake his hand and thank him, because he works so hard for these, and in some ways it's a bit of a thankless job, because sometimes I think people only, I guess it's human nature, right? But people tend to only sometimes say something or comment when there's something to complain about, when there's something negative, right? But he works so hard on these things, and he does such a fantastic job. He has a lot of help. He'd be the first to interrupt me and say, well, I've got a lot of help, but he's the, he's the guiding force behind this. All right, so we talked about the fog on the Patreon podcast yesterday, and I uploaded that today. Comment on the Patreon, let me know what you guys thought, but we had a lot of fun. And let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Oh, I'll mention the fog again on Sunday, because Sunday is podcast day and Sunday is April 21st. So you fog nuts like me know what April's 21st is. It's referenced right in the beginning of the movie with the John Houseman dialogue or reading, whatever. And 100 years ago today, or tomorrow on April 21st, then he mentions what happened, the ship crashed, and then mayhem after that, right? Yeah. Hey, is anybody here hasn't seen The Fog? I'm just curious. I can't imagine what you're paying for college for your daughter, Alan. College is so expensive. Alien Day. All right, I'll probably have to turn in my nerd card, but why is April 26th Alien Day? Oh, I wanted to talk about this, and I thought it was over there on another shelf. Stranger Than Science. Yeah, I'll just finish up with this and then let you guys go to bed. But first of all, give me some feedback, whether you're watching live or watching later. Comment below. Yeah, okay. All right, thanks. What'd you think of The Fog? Someone just said they saw it recently, but I can't. Can I scroll down? Yeah, I can. Joe. All right. All right, so everybody's so excited about the show being live again on Sundays, and it's really fun to do this on Thursday nights too. And it's got sort of I was telling someone about someone who wasn't familiar about Coast to Coast AM, Art Bell. That was a paranormal show. This isn't, but just sort of that vibe. You're listening to a DJ, and it's late at night, and so is an hour enough? Do you want to do an hour and a half usually? Just or just yeah, you can still listen to it. On Facebook, they've got the old Coast to Coast AMs, and they also have Midnight in the Desert. What year did Art Bell die? Does anybody know? 90 minutes? You're making me feel great, Dave. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Ben. I'm really glad to hear that. I've missed you. Yeah, something like that, Chaz. I'm not someone who really believes in the supernatural, the paranormal. I would if there's evidence for it. I'm fine believing anything that there's evidence for. But that said, they're just so fun to listen to. 2018? Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I think he was doing that Midnight in the Desert stuff. I saw one dated 2015. Yeah, evidence for me, although like Carl Sagan, evidence and imagination. So it's fun to imagine these things, right? That's why we like horror. So But anyway, that said, I think Art Bell is really fun to listen to, and I'm sort of going for that vibe. Thanks, guys. I'll try to have enough content for 90 minutes. Anyway, this book, Stranger Than Science, okay, published in the 50s, I believe, originally. Yeah, 1959. And my mom used to, some Saturdays, take my sister and I with her for clothes shopping. This is back in the early to mid 80s when she would go to Salvation Army, places like that. And they don't really much anymore, but they always had a bunch of used books back then. And I discovered a lot of books that way. I was bored as hell during this. Sorry if you're watching, Mom. But I'm grateful that we did it because I ran across some books that otherwise I would not have run across. This is one of them. Excuse me. Stranger Than Science, and it's a book of supposedly true stories about the supernatural, written by a guy by the name of Frank Edwards. And there's just really fascinating stories in here. Now, in the age of the internet, it's really easy to get online and debunk most of these stories. I mean, if you cared to. I tried a couple of them. For example, The Mystery of David Lang is the first supposedly true story, and talks about this guy in 1880 that he basically, his kids were coming back to the farm or whatever. I've got to reread it, but he waves hello at them, and then he just disappears. And then they look for him and they look for him, and it ends up with, every one of these are just a few pages, so it's a fun read. The last two paragraphs of this one is, the children noticed that at the spot where he had last been seen, there was a circle of stunted yellow grass some 15 feet in diameter. On that evening, as they stood beside the circle, 11-year-old Sarah called to their father, and to their astonishment, the youngsters heard his voice calling faintly for help over and over until it faded away forever. So, that's a good idea, Jay. Anyway, story prompts, if nothing else. It's a fun read. I've got that version. I've got this one wrapped in plastic. This is the 1959 version. The other one is a reprint. So, all right, Chaz, Mr. Materialist, I'm right there with you. I'll believe anything as long as there's evidence for it, right? Believe in aliens or ghosts or whatever, but you just have to show me a reasonable amount of evidence. This is one of the best books, and I really mean this, that anyone can read, nonfiction books. This is one of the books that is a real good foundation for teaching how to think, teaching you how to differentiate, especially, God, makes even more sense in today's day and age, right? Where some people have called it kind of a post-truth age. Now, I'm not going to get into politics or religion ever, ever at all. I want this to be a place where people can escape from that and not have to think about it, how crazy the world is. But that said, it's even more pertinent today. He's got something in here. Here's a chapter called, let's see here. Yeah, The Dragon in My Garage, chapter 10, is an amazing chapter. Listen, whatever your beliefs are, it's not for me to tell you, but everybody should read this book. I mean, everybody. It's called The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark by Carl Sagan. Who, if there was ever anybody holding a candle to light the dark, it was that guy. Chapter 12, The Fine Art of Baloney Detection. So yeah. Anyway, check it out. But it starts off. He says he writes an introduction. Excuse me, a preface, and talks about his parents and talks about um, his teachers. It was a blustery fall day in 1939, and I'm not going to read this whole thing. But his parents were very supportive of him. He went to the World's Fair in 39. That's one of the things he talks about here. And it really inspired him. I've always been grateful to my mentors of the 1950s when he went to school, college, etc. And I've tried to make sure that each of them knew my appreciation. But as I look back, it seems clear to me that I learned the most essential things not from my school teachers, nor even from my university professors, but from my parents, who knew nothing at all about science in that single far-off year of 1939. So it really is a book that teaches you how to think. So if any of you happen to actually pick it up on my say-so and read it, I'm really interested in hearing what you think about it. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up here, but I want to know if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about. And I want to know if this is kind of the format that you want me to stick with, just sort of me flying by the seat of my pants and talking about whatever hits my brain. Just kind of nice for me because I can get it out of my brain a little bit. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Chaz. Thanks for saying that. Sometimes I'm actually flabbergasted that people want to listen to me talk. So, you like this? It's just hanging out and chatting. Love this. Thank you. Yeah, I really like this. I really like doing it this way. And I'm glad to hear that you guys like it. So we'll just keep doing things this way. And I won't kick you out next week, okay? Halloween stories. And that sounds great to me. Kolchak. Well, I could talk and watch that Kolchak series over and over. What am I looking for? Rick is the he's the expert on Kolchak. Well, actually, Pete is too. Rick. Speaking of Rick, an amazing guy, right, Ben? Very kind man, very knowledgeable man. He's written a lot of books. If you are interested in, or have been interested in The Shadow, meaning that superhero that was on the radio in the 40s, and there was a movie in the, early 90s? Early 90s, starring Alec Baldwin as the Shadow. Anyway, Rick wrote a book. He really is an expert on so many things. It's incredible. Rick wrote a book. One of his many books is called A Chronology of Shadows, a Timeline of the Shadow's Exploits. It's available in print and Kindle. So if you're interested in that particular superhero, then you really should read this. So who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. Thanks for asking about Oreo. She's over there in her bed sleeping right now. And someone asked earlier, so I won't get into it too much, except to say that I'm cautiously optimistic and she's slowly doing better. I know the gabapentin and the steroids are helping a lot. Give me a second. I was gonna grab a book over here. Oh, here it is. There it is. You mentioned Halloween, and I've mentioned this on the show before, but this is a book called The Night Country by Stuart Onan. And this, you won't get this edition unless you find it resold somewhere. Stuart gave it to me. It was very, very kindly gave it to me, and it's an amazing edition. Paul's a big fan of this book too, Paul Tremblay, and he wrote an afterword to this edition. And Francis Valancourt illustrated this edition. This is just amazing. So it's signed by Stuart Onan, signed by Paul, signed by Francis Valancourt. Francis Walcott Valancourt, I'm sorry. I don't know him personally, but man, is he an amazing artist. I'm sure you guys have seen his stuff out there. Look at that. Introduction by Stuart, and an afterword by Paul. And you see this throughout. It's just this kind of stuff, and some color images throughout. And the afterword by Paul, of course, is an afterword because there's a spoiler in it. So you think it's torture, but you know it's justice. And what it's about is this. It's set in this small town in the early 2000s. I mean, right in the first chapter, you get mentions of Blockbuster and things like that. And it's set, as the novel opens, it's Halloween day. It's midnight. And a year ago on that same day, on Halloween, some high school kids were drinking and driving, basically, and they got in a wreck out on a country road outside town. In other words, they were driving around just being kids. Yeah, they're friends. Stuart and Stephen King are friends. And they've actually written several books and stories together. Anyway, so it's a year later, and out of the 5 kids, 2 of them have died. Well, let me just read this. This says it better than I can. I think this is good to close up with because this is one of my favorite books of all time. I first discovered it in the Urbandale Library, Iowa, and I thought, wow, The Night Country. Wow, what a great title. I took it home and read it, and then I reread it. It's just really great. It's not available on Kindle. I'm pretty sure it's not. But you can get the other edition, fairly cheaply on Amazon or wherever. So if you find this one, if you find this one online somewhere, it's going to be expensive. Can't imagine anyone letting go of their copy, though. Stuart Onan's classic tale of small town life and Halloween hauntings is back in print as a beautiful signed and slip-cased limited edition hardcover from Ovidian Publications. At midnight on Halloween in a cloistered New England suburb, a car carrying 5 teenagers leaves a winding road and slams into a tree, killing 3 of its passengers. A year later, one escapes unharmed. Another suffers severe brain damage. So of the 2 that survive. A year later, summoned by the memories of those closest to them, the 3 who died come back on a last chilling mission among the living. This was the same jacket cover or synopsis that was on the other edition and that night in the Urbandale Library, and it really sold me. A strange and unsettling ghost story, the night country, creeps through the leaf-strewn streets and quiet cul-de-sacs of a bedroom community, reaching into the desperately connected, yet isolated lives of three people, changed forever by the accident. Tim, who survived, yet lost everything. Brooks, the cop whose guilty secret has destroyed his life. And Kyle's mom, that's the brain-damaged kid, trying to love the new son the doctors return to her. As the day wanes and darkness falls, one of them puts a terrible plan into effect, and they find themselves caught in a collision of need and desire, watched over by the knowing ghosts. Macabre and moving, the night country elevates every small town's bad high school crash into myth, finding the deeper human truth beneath a shared and very American tragedy. So there you have it. And I would also love to read some of the first chapter, but I won't because we're short on time. But the very first chapter, oh, by the way, the chapters are named after horror movies or parts of horror movies. Yeah, they did. It's already available on Audible. Christopher Golden and the gal who played Tara co-wrote it. And they've got Spike, they've got Cordelia, they've got several others I don't remember. I started listening to it, and I love Buffy and Angel, as you guys know, but I couldn't get into it. Maybe I'll try it again. It's basically set in an alternate reality, so that's why Cordelia is alive. But anyway, this first chapter is just amazingly describes, it puts into words everything I feel about Halloween and autumn. It's just amazing. I'll just read the first paragraph, then I'll let you guys get back to your evening. One second. Come, do you hear it? The wind murmuring in the eaves, scouring the bare trees. How it howls, almost musical, a harmony of old moans. The house seems to breathe, an invalid. Leave your scary movie marathon. This is better than TV. Leave the lights out. The blue glow follows you down the hall. Go to the window in the unused room, the cold seeping through the glass. The moon is risen, caught in nodding branches. The image holds you, black trunks backlit, one silver ray fallen across the deck, beckoning. It's a romance, this invitation to lunacy, elemental yet forbidden, tempting, something remembered in the blood. Don't you ever wonder? Don't you want to know? And maybe next time I'll read the whole thing. The first chapter, it's just a couple pages. But yeah, if you haven't read this book, you really should pick it up. And with that, you guys want to talk about or have me touch on anything else before you go? We're right at an hour and a half, not counting our little episode at the beginning. Thanks for finding the new link, coming back, and shoot me if you have suggestions for next Thursday. Shoot me an email, lovecraftezine@gmail.com. And yeah, have a fun time grading, Dave. What time is it where you are? My wife comes home from a long day working, and then she works some more, typically. And all you teachers know what that's like. So anyway, let me know what you'd like to talk about next week. I'm glad it's early for you. Lovecraftezine@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to talk about whatever you suggest. Favorite Twilight Zone episodes? Yeah, I better write that down. But if I don't write it down, I'll forget. Twilight Zone. T-Zone. Thursday. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you Sunday and next week. Good night.